Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming. I'd like to thank not only the members of the staffs of members of Congress who are here, but also those who have traveled near and far to be here this morning on this extraordinarily important event. And I understand the important, critical nature of the humanitarian crisis affecting the people who have survived the attack in Ashraf and who are the responsibility of the world and the responsibility particularly of the United States government. I want to start out by saying that we are gathered here too many times for those of us who have started this long journey with you, who are compassionately committed to the cause that you believe in, a free and independent and democratic Iran. The one thing that is important to understand, there's a difference between the aspirations of what we want in Iran and the humanitarian crisis that cries out for resolution for those innocent people who are refugees in Camp Liberty and who deserve to be free. There's no doubt that the fact that they are still in effect imprisoned in Iraq should be unacceptable to those of us who have had the privilege of working in Congress and in the U.S. government. From the moment that the attack took place at Camp Ashraf on September 1st, there has been, for all intents and purposes, within the confines of the United States State Department, a determination not to impute any responsibility or obligation on the government of Iraq, despite every ounce of evidence to the contrary. That attack was a dastardly crime against humanity that was committed by and on behalf of the government of Iraq against the innocent people who were there merely to protect the possessions of the people at Camp Liberty under the very eyes of the United Nations. In any other circumstance, there would be such an outcry by the United States government against that attack that we would have demanded that people be held responsible, that there would be an absolute obligation for an investigation. But officials in the State Department say, oh no, it wasn't the government of Iraq that was responsible for that dastardly attack. Oh no, it was not the government of Iraq that was taking orders from the mullahs in Iran that orchestrated that attack. And yet, the evidence has slowly but securely piled up. One ounce of evidence after the another has now turned into an irrefutable conclusion that the government of Iraq was indeed responsible for the attack, and, more importantly, the taking of 7 hostages that the State Department, in the guise of a Deputy Assistant Secretary, Mr. McGurk, claims are no longer in Iraq. Somehow or other, our State Department has got it into its unfortunate belief that the United States has far more to gain to engage in a cover-up of the facts involving the attack at Camp Ashraf, and they denying repeatedly that the 7 hostages that were taken are no longer in Iraq. Mr. McGurk has appeared before several committees of Congress to repeatedly attempt to refute any evidence to the contrary in an effort to protect and avoid placing the responsibility on the government of Iraq. And yet, just yesterday, no less an independent, and I underline, a respected independent organization that is highly respected around the world, Amnesty International, issued an urgent report that essentially confirmed what we have been saying from the day that the attack occurred and those hostages were taken hostage, and that is that the hostages are still in Iraq. So I asked Mr. McGurk a question. Mr. McGurk, I, as a former United States ambassador, would want to at least protect the integrity and reputation of the United States government and not engage in further subterfuge in order to protect a government that is not necessarily aligned with the United States' interest in trying to resolve this humanitarian conflict. Wouldn't you, Mr. McGurk, want to at least now recognize, wouldn't you want to accept the fact that no less an independent and respected organization as Amnesty International is denying your constant accusations that those hostages are no longer in Iraq, and indeed is prepared to confirm that they have independent evidence that those hostages are in Iraq? I call on you, Mr. McGurk, to come up to Congress and to apologize to the American people for continuing to peddle the fiction that they are no longer there. I also want to say the following about their safety and security of those in Camp Liberty. When Secretary Clinton, my good friend, indicated that she wanted the people to leave Camp Ashraf and move to Camp Liberty, she committed the United States government to assure their protection. She committed the United States government, if people would peacefully leave Ashraf and move to Liberty, that the United States government would do everything possible to protect their safety and security until they were relocated. Unfortunately, the bureaucrats in the State Department are not adhering to Mrs. Clinton's pledge to the people in this room and to the American people, and most importantly, to the people at Camp Liberty. The facts, ladies and gentlemen, here are very clear. Do not get caught up in the legacy of retribution and anger that exists within the United States government over the fact that they may or may not approve of the policies of the MEK. That is not the issue here. The issue is truth. The issue is truth versus lie. The issue is whether or not, in the end, the United States government is going to fulfill its pledges. It's important for all of us, not because you are here merely to hear someone like myself. It's important for you to understand the crisis of confidence that affects U.S. government policy to fulfilling its obligations to these poor people who only want safety and freedom and security, not just in another country, but also here in the United States. Thank you very much.